Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Diplomatic Enclave. I am your host, Omer Khalid. We have the privilege today of having in our studios a representative of a country with which we have one of the strongest relationships ever. It is a relationship that goes beyond friendship. It is a relationship that goes much beyond a cooperation. Some facts about this country. It is the second largest economy in the world. It is also boasting of the Great Wall, that is the largest man-made structure in the world. People in this country grew rice as way back as 5,000 years BC. Toilet paper was invented in this country. The compass, gunpowder, printing, silk was discovered in this country way back in the year 3000 BC, and the list goes on and on. We have the privilege today of having, for this very episode, the Deputy Head of Mission of the Embassy of the People's Republic of China, Excellency Lijian Zhao, with us. Lijian Zhao, thank you very much to have joined us today.
Assalamu alaikum. It is my honor and pleasure to join you. I have been watching your programs for many years. So today I am really happy to join you in the studio.
You know, when I talk to anybody from China, it's like I'm talking to somebody from my family, somebody who's a very close friend. That association, that bond has always been there. And I'm sure it's very reciprocal, because this is not your first mission to Pakistan. You've been here before as well in the 90s. Am I not wrong?
Oh yes, actually this is my second term serving in Pakistan. I was here from 1999 to 2003 for 4 years and a half. Today, thank you very much for your invitation. It is a coincidence that I came to Pakistan last time 4 years ago, exactly on July the 3rd.
Oh, yeah, so it is 4 years. How have these 4 years passed?
Yeah, I think, Pakistan is always the best station for a Chinese diplomat because, we enjoy the best relationship between the two countries. We always call it, the all-weather friendship. It is an all-weather friends or iron brotherhood. So it is, very special, among, the countries. And we Chinese, not only diplomat, we Chinese citizens, when we are in Pakistan, we are receiving almost a VIP treatment by our Pakistani brothers. So I enjoyed my life, and work here in Pakistan.
So, have you visited Pakistan? Have you seen the different places, the mountains, the plains, Multan, Karachi, Faisalabad? Have you been to all those cities?
Oh yes, even those places like Quetta, Gawada, or Gilgit, Hongza. I have been to most of these places. I think Pakistan is very beautiful. You have a lot of potential, for tourism and for economic development.
Speaking of economic development, before we come to the China-Pakistan economic corridor and so many other avenues where both countries are working together, let's talk a little bit about your history. In Chairman Mao's Red Book, he says the people and the people alone are the motive force in the making of world history. You've got a very rich history as far as China is concerned. Could you give us some of the beautiful and wonderful and magnificent highlights?
Yeah, I think China has a recorded history of at least 3,300 years old. We also are the only civilization, ancient civilization, that has been continued until today. There are also 3 other ancient civilizations. Later, for this or other reason, their history was broken. This year we are celebrating, the 70th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China. It will be a big year for us. Yeah.
Definitely. And China, I mean, even before 1949, has had a very strong influence in the whole world. You've been one of the world leaders as far as literature and medicine is also concerned. Education is also something that is very important to China. Could you highlight your system of education and how you impart that on children of different ages?
Yeah, I think China has been very much paying attention to education because in ancient times, since 2,000 years ago, we have this Confucius. He was he has played a big role in the education in the whole China, and since about 1,000 years, in our history, in about 1,000 years, we have established this like this civil servant system. The civil, the government officials
Yes.
were selected, after examination, and after the founding of New China, we have made this 9-year education mandatory, compulsory, and up to now, I think China's literacy rate is over 96%.
All right.
And I think according to the latest ratings, at least 12 Chinese universities, they are rated as the best 100 universities in the world. It is just next to the United States and the United Kingdom.
All right.
Yeah.
The I mean, as far as education is concerned, there are different languages that are spoken, but Chinese is your main language. In the education system, is it also Chinese, or have you inculcated other languages as well?
Yes, I think in China we have more than 30 provinces. In all these provinces, of course, Mandarin or Standard Chinese has to be taught. But we also have 5. We call it autonomous regions. These are mostly minority regions. They also have their languages. Those languages are also taught in the schools.
All right. And how much of importance do you give to all the different languages that are prevalent in China? Because in a lot of countries in the world, the regional languages are slowly fading. But how much of importance does China give to all its different languages? Because as far as culture is concerned, you're very strong as well. But what about the language?
I think besides learning the Standard Chinese, these minorities are encouraged to keep their traditions and their language. So this is a part of their identity. And this is part of their culture and their blood. So we, from the government, we are encouraging them to do that.
All right.
Yeah.
Speaking of education, of course, it's very important, but something that is also as important are the culture and the traditions of any country, because that is what the country is known for around the world. What have been the influences of Chinese culture, and how have you preserved this beautiful and rich culture that we see through different programs on our channel, on different other channels as well? And how important, Mr. Zhao, is the Chinese philosophy that is the core of this culture?
I think the core of the Chinese culture is, very similar with that of Pakistan. We are all Eastern cultures, Oriental cultures. It's for China, our culture, is for peace, development, harmony, win-win cooperation, diversity, inclusiveness, family values. We have a lot of respect for not only for family, but also for our elders. We also, regard, the honor for the country as the utmost, because in China, we see nation. the word nation in China means two characters. One is the country, the nation. The other one is family. So is without your country, there is no family. So it is two in one. So we have all this as the essence or the core of our culture.
All right. I mean, that is very important, I feel, because when we go in the West, in a lot of areas around the world, those core family values, those social values are slowly and steadily disappearing if they have not already disappeared. So it is in countries where the family stays strong, when the society stays as one, that those countries remain strong as well, because that is the base of any nation. Now,
Absolutely, yeah.
Of course. Now, as far as sports, you're also one of the oldest sporting cultures in the world. Archery was being practiced even during the Zhou dynasty. Physical fitness is very important for the Chinese tradition as well. I can see you as well. Whenever I see the people from China, it's very rare that I see people who are not physically fit. What are the popular and traditional sports in China? And I've also heard that football was created in China, in fact invented in that country.
Well, yeah, there has been some, dispute because, many countries are trying to claim, this who invented the football. According to our record, it was invented more than 4,000 years ago.
Yes, in 1000 BC, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, and in Tang Dynasty at that time, this game was very popular. Also at that time there is women football teams, especially in the palaces. In China now, besides football, we are also, basketball, ping pong, badminton, are also very popular. I think maybe the most popular is ping pong because that's our national game, and we Chinese especially, they are good at small balls. For football, our ranking is not that good.
What do you play? Do you play any sport?
Yes, I'm a lover of all these games. I myself usually play some badminton.
All right.
Even in the embassy, if we have time, on weekends, and then we can do some exercise to keep us fit.
All right. One more thing that you put an emphasis on is the way you cook your food. I mean, it's cooked in a way so that there's not much of fat in it. It's a mix of vegetables, and we love Chinese food. But tell me one thing, there's one conception or misconception here that the Chinese food that is served here in the Chinese restaurants is really not the authentic Chinese food. Is that true? Because the Chinese food is very spicy over here. Do people eat spicy in China as well?
Well, in fact, in China we have 8 families of, Chinese cuisine. So there are, a lot of diversity. And, when you go to the north, maybe they like salty food. When you go to the southern part, they like sweet. You go to the west, they like, as you said, spicy food. It's not only spicy. How should I describe it? You just taste the dishes, your tongue will go immediately numb.
All right.
So, in China, we have different foods. In Pakistan, in many other countries, they have Chinese restaurants. But, if you run totally Chinese dishes, maybe it is not popular, to the local residents.
All right.
So it has to adapt to the local taste. So it's a mixture. I think, if you mix it well, then you sell well.
All right.
But they are all Chinese restaurants.
Yes, there are a lot of Chinese restaurants, and we in Pakistan, as you know, we love Chinese food. One more thing that also makes a country popular with its neighboring nations or other nations is its economy, is how you trade with that country. What are the different sectors of the Chinese economy? And one more thing that you emphasize something on a lot is something I'd like to know about is what is that rule of 70 that you talk about a lot?
The Chinese economy, has been growing tremendously, especially, in the last 40 years. I will just give you a few numbers. In 1978, the Chinese economy was about 240 billion US dollars. It's after 40 years, now it is now we are 13.6 trillion US dollars. I think if you talk about development economics, this 70 is a magic number. Or you call it a rule of 70. For example, if your economy is developing at 10% like China, so you divide it by 70, it means that every 7 years the economy, Chinese economy, will double. So you can calculate, since 1978, now it is about 40 years. So I think by the year 2020, the Chinese economy will be 64 times than that of 1978. And then if you apply to some other economies, for example, if your economy is developing at, for example, 2%, like in the world, many developed countries, now they are developing at this rate. So if you divide it, by 70, it means that every 35 years, their economy can double. So that's why we are saying that in the last 40 years, the Chinese economy, in these 40 years, we have made progress, which the developed countries has completed in 100 years. So this rule of 70, it is a very magic number.
That is very interesting because whenever I read comments by you, you talk a lot about this rule of 70. So I just wanted to know from you as to what it really meant. How has the Chinese economy grown? What are the reasons behind the strength of the Chinese economy and the growth, the immense growth that it has had?
I think there are many reasons. First of all, it is, I think the political stability is a prerequisite. And number two, I think, you have to maintain a peaceful environment, especially a surrounding environment. If you engage in war or conflict with other countries, you cannot have the time and energy in developing your economy. Number three, I think China has all these 40 years, put economic development as number one priority. And that's very important. Everything is concentrating on economic development. In the past, even we overemphasized the economic development. How to, for example, evaluate the performance of different provinces. You evaluate this governor by the GDP growth of his province. If it's 15%, good. If it's 1%, I think he should be removed by the central government. Number four, I think China has made a lot of efforts in attracting foreign direct investment, like in the 1970s. China gave extra national treatment to the foreign investors, because at that time, if China didn't have any investment, domestic investment. So what can you do? You can only try to attract FDIs, and then when the investors came, you have the jobs, you have the skills, technology, market, taxes, everything. And then, the Chinese economy, developed itself. And this is the one thing. And the fifth point, I think we also encourage this export-driven growth. Even up to now, this export is now coming down, but is still, very important part of the Chinese economy, because now China is called the world factory. Well, this is by no means a false name, because now China is very much part of the industrial chain, of the world. So you may have a component produced in South Korea, in Chinese Taipei, in Malaysia, but finally, for example, this cell phone, it goes to China to be assembled. So China is now very much a part of this world economy.
Speaking of world economy, when you think of China now, of course, in the last couple of years, you think of the Belt and Road Initiative, the BRI. That is, I feel, one of the most important projects emanating from China. And then one of its part that is very important for us as well is the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. Tell us a little bit about the BRI, how it came into being, and then the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. And what does China want to achieve through these two very important projects?
Yeah, I think for China, this Belt and Road Initiative was proposed by President Xi Jinping in 2013. His goal, was to promote win-win cooperation among the countries, especially in Asia and European countries. So after 6 years, now if we look back for this BRI initiative, we have established a lot of projects in infrastructure, in energy, with this Belt and Road countries. So there is most of these projects they are benefiting these different countries. So for CPEC, CPEC is we always see this as a flagship or a major pilot project under the BRI. CPEC actually is the best example, for other countries, because in the last 6 years, we have already completed 11 projects. We have now 11 projects under construction. Now we always see that this CPEC has helped Pakistan to solve this load shedding issue. And also, it improved the infrastructure of Pakistan a lot. Now you are, having more highways, motorways, especially under CPEC. CPEC is now entering the second stage. We are trying to focus more on industrial cooperation, to try to help Pakistan to set up more factories. And also we are focusing on social sector. We offered Pakistan at least $1 billion as a grant from the Chinese government. We have identified 27 projects, especially for those far-flung provinces. 17 of them, will be completed, within 1 year, and another 10 we hope, it could be completed within 3 years. We are also encouraging, third-party participation under CPEC, especially, in the SEZs, Special Economic Zones, because, we can not only encourage, Chinese, Pakistani business, in those SEZs, all other countries are welcome to set up their factories over there. So we are entering a new stage of CPEC, and I think CPEC is an unprecedented program, especially for Pakistan, and we hope that in the second stage we can even bring more benefits to the local people.
All right. Now, speaking of the China-Pakistan economic corridor, we've seen a lot of progress as well. It's also not only a flagship project for China, but it's also very important for Pakistan's economy to stand on its own feet, and for other investors from other countries apart from China to invest in Pakistan as well. You talked about the economic zones. But we hear a lot of negative criticism as well from certain quarters. I mean, let's be very blunt, from India, from other nations as well, who criticize not only the China-Pakistan economic corridor, but also the BRI. Why? Why do that? Why criticize such an important project that could ultimately benefit the entire region?
Well, I think you mentioned about India. India always say that CPEC passed the Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. Actually, CPEC, as the name suggests, this is an economic corridor, so it has nothing to do with territorial claims. They claim that they said that we are opposed to CPEC because of this territorial integrity or something like that. This has nothing to do with this territory. Secondly, we think that all those projects, they are economic in nature. China is working on CPEC. These are all projects which are meant to improve the economic situation, the well-being of the people here in Pakistan. There is we do not have any strategic or security goals here in Pakistan. Number three, I think between China and Pakistan, we have been China helped Pakistan building this KKH back in in the 60s, 1960s, and we have been traveling on this road for decades. Why suddenly there is a problem and CPEC is passing through Gilgit? Why suddenly it has become a problem? So I am really confused of their position. I think for CPEC, we are focusing more on economic development. Our position on Kashmir is loud and clear. And there is a separate issue, and we will continue to push forward CPEC projects. There is no doubt about it.
All right. Well, speaking of CPEC and speaking of the relationship with countries, we, of course, would like to know a bit more about China's foreign policy. What are the principles that govern your policy and your relationship with countries?
I think for China, we practice a foreign policy of peace and development. So these are the core principles, of China's foreign policy. We have maintained that even China is the second largest economy. Even when we become the largest economy, where China will not become a hegemon, we are not doing those hegemonic foreign policies. We encourage all those disputes should be solved through talks and dialogues instead of doing it by military means. If you are not happy with some country, you invade the country. That's not the way. We are also advocating that, especially for developing countries, neighboring countries, we should have more win-win cooperation with each other. We support the sovereignty and territorial integrity of these neighboring countries, and we also try to advocate this idea of this relationship of a major relationship of especially with countries like the United States. We are trying to avoid this. This is a theory in the West. It's called a suicide's trap. Basically, it talks about the relationship between number one and number two. And according to this theory, number two will try to overtake number one, and there will be a war or a conflict between the two.
Well, speaking of that, I mean, that is very, you're coming yourself to the next question that I wanted to ask.
Yes.
There have been a lot of trade tensions, hiccups between the US and China of late. What has been the progress on that, and what is the reason of these trade tensions between the two countries?
Yeah, I think people are paying a lot of attention to this trade dispute between China and the United States. Well, it is natural because these are the two largest economies of the world. If they had a trade war or a new Cold War, it's not only these two economies will become losers, it will also affect other economies, other countries. So I think recently you must have heard that President Xi had a meeting with President Trump at Osaka in Japan during the G20 summit. I think both sides have agreed to continue the trade talks, and I think this is a good signal to the world. Before this, the United States threatened us, by tariffs. It is not only a threat; they did it, and also, of course, we have also countermeasures, and they are trying to bully China. But we, are open to the talks. If you want to talk with us, there's no problem. If you are trying to bully China, China will fight to the end because there is no winners in a trade war. Both will become losers. If you want to become a loser, well, even we lose ourselves, but we have to fight for our honor and dignity. We have to fight for our interests too. I think between China and the United States, we have a lot of interdependence. For example, you cannot imagine how much is the trade between the two countries. You cannot how much the people-to-people exchanges, the number of tourists visiting each other. You cannot imagine how big is FDI in both in China and the United States. So we have a lot of mutual interests to cooperate with each other. If there is no talks, no cooperation, if there is a new Cold War, both sides will suffer, and also the world will suffer. So I think finally this reasoning is coming back, and we hope the two sides can achieve a win-win situation through the talks. I think it takes time. There is no hurry about that.
So we can also see a resolution as far as Huawei is concerned in the long term.
Yes, Huawei is another case. The United States, has been, the U.S. companies have been selling, Huawei, for example, some chips even the operating system for years. Huawei is coming up. Huawei is also,
one of the leading companies in the world, if I'm not wrong.
yeah, it's coming up faster than the U.S. companies. I think the United States, there is some increasingly, worried about Huawei company. Huawei is a private company, is doing good. And in the past, for example, in terms of the 5G technology,
Yes.
Huawei is, also one of the leading companies, in the world now. But in the past, the United States, U.S. companies used to lead in 2G, 3G, 4G. But now, Chinese companies is also coming up, so they are a little bit worried. There is no need to worry. Nowadays, as I mentioned, this, industrial chain, is interlinked. For example, we are using our cell phones every day. This is a small phone. This operating system maybe is from the United States. Some chips maybe from the United States. Some, this screen maybe is coming from South Korea or Chinese Taipei. So, this every country, is responsible for some components, some part of it. And we put it all together, and then we have this cell phone. If you cut all this, into pieces, so how can, this technology or cooperation among the countries make progress? So I think, recently we heard that President Trump has decided to cancel part of those restrictions on Huawei. I think this is if it is true, I think this is a good development. Because the United States companies, they are making tons of money every year because of Huawei. They are buying U.S. technology for years. But if you don't give Huawei, since last 10 years, they have been working on a Plan B.
Yes.
They can use the Chinese technology. If you don't want to sell us, we have to be self-independent. And I believe, now President Trump has made a good decision that, now he has removed those restrictions. Otherwise, we will develop our own technology. We don't need
All right.
U.S. technologies anymore.
All right. Well, we will continue our conversation with you, Mr. Zhao. We're talking to the Deputy Head of Mission of the People's Republic of China. It's a very interesting conversation and a very frank conversation as far as China's presence and China's relations with other countries, including Pakistan, is concerned. We'll be back right after this break. Stay with us. Welcome back, and we continue our discussion with the Deputy Head of Mission of the People's Republic of China, Excellency Lijian Zhao. Sir, Pakistan and China developed diplomatic relations in 1951. Since then, those relations have only become stronger and stronger. How would you, as a Chinese diplomat, categorize this relationship?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, this is a all-weather relationship. This is compared with, some fire-weather friends, both with China and Pakistan. So, as a diplomat, I, feel very much at home. For example, when I go to the market, when I go to a tourist spot, Pakistani people may come to me, should we have a group photo with, is something like we are treated like a movie star. And also, when I was, during my stay here, once I, had, I was driving, out to a market, and my tire was burst. There's a burst. And I had to call my colleagues from the embassy, to come and for my rescue. But some Pakistani people, he was passing by. He stopped his car and he helped me, to try to, replace the tire. It was very hard. It's over 40 degrees outside, and he was, all sweating. And
but he was helping you out.
He was helping me out before my, the arrival of my colleague from the embassy. He has completed the job, and this this is
just an example of the friendship that both countries share. I mean,
Yeah.
this is, we have cooperation in so many avenues, Excellency.
Yes.
Now, China has always supported Pakistan's integrity, independence, and sovereignty. And the world in general, as you know, and the region faces numerous challenges. How can Pakistan and China, in your point of view, cooperate to meet these challenges?
Yeah, I think there is no doubt about it. China and Pakistan have been helping each other, on all these, core issues, faced by the two countries. We are like one team, and faced with the challenges of the world. I think the two countries, especially the Foreign Office, can have more coordination with each other. We should try to compare notes, more frequently, and try to work together. We can also work on some issue-specific, related topics, and we can have, some special consultation on this in these areas. I think there are many areas that we can work with each other.
Of course, we have the free trade agreement that is there since 2008, the free trade zones that have been granted by China since 2009. So many Chinese companies that are working in Pakistan, including in the telecom, Zhao, that is here. High-level visits as well that have happened between the two countries when Zhao visited Pakistan in 2010, then Li Keqiang in 2013, then of course Xi Jinping came to Pakistan as well. How important do you feel is also this exchange of high-level visits between two countries, whether it be our Prime Minister, our current Prime Minister Imran Khan Sahab, or the Chinese leaders coming to Pakistan?
Yeah, I think this high-level visits between the two countries is of great significance because high-level visits will play a leading role in the development of the relations between the two countries. For example, we are talking about this CPEC. These high-level visits, have greatly boosted the development of the CPEC. In Pakistan, you always talk about this CPEC, $46 billion US dollars. Why $46 billion US dollars? So it is during President Xi Jinping's visit to Pakistan, we signed more than 60 documents, with each other, and half of them, more than 30 of them, the total value of those agreements, they are CPEC related. That is about 46 billion US dollars. So I think after Prime Minister Imran Khan went into office, I think there has been at least two visits. We invited him twice to visit China, to have official visit, and also to attend, the Belt and Road Conference. I think there are at least 4 meetings. He has met President Xi Jinping on 4 meetings, on 4 different occasions. So I think this high level visits between the 2 countries can provide the guidance on how to develop the bilateral relations. That is of utmost importance.
From high-level visits to, of course, people-to-people contact, we cannot highlight the importance of that people-to-people contact as well. We've got the China-Pakistan Friendship Association that was formed in 1956. A former ambassador of China, Mr. Shah Zukang, is the president of this federation. What are the different activities in your point of view that have been done and should further be done to enhance this people-to-people cooperation between both countries?
Well, you have done a lot of homework. I think these people-to-people exchanges need to be further enhanced. The government can play a big role. I think the Chinese government is offering the largest number of government scholarships to Pakistani students. I think last year the number is 7,000. And that is the largest number of government scholarships offered to any other country in the world. And nowadays in China, among the international students, Pakistan students is number 3. It's just after South Korea and Thailand.
All right.
I think now you have about 25,000 students learning in Chinese universities. If you compare this with, this is a huge number. If you compare this with the number going to the UK, which is I think about 16,000. If you compare this with that number with the United States, I think that's about 5,000. So if you plus this number of those 2 countries, UK, US, it is still much less than that of China. And also the Chinese government is inviting Pakistani youth to China to is an exchange of visits. We are sending a lot of yearly 50 to 100 at least Pakistan youth to visit China. Now at the embassy we are also running each year we are running about 20 to 30 programs. We are inviting Pakistani scholars, media, even doctors, nurses, different kind of delegations, government officials, police, going to China. So I think this, is a people-to-people relationship is very important. From the embassy, from the Chinese government, we will continue to work with our Pakistani friends to try to encourage this. For tourism also, now we are trying to relax our visa policy, try to facilitate more businessmen, tourists from Pakistan to China. But there is still a long way to go, and we will try our best to provide facilitation to the Pakistani people.
Of course, facilitation also includes culture. We've got Pakistani films that are now opening up in China as well, and we hope that this collaboration in the cultural field also becomes stronger and more. China-Pakistan film cooperation and co-productions also happen because China is a huge market when it comes to television or film, and Pakistani films can also benefit a lot by opening in China, as have some of the films that have opened recently in China. Now, finally, sir, what are the key challenges that both countries face, Pakistan and China, currently, and how do you see this relationship developing in the decades to come? What will be the priority of Pakistan-China cooperation in the coming years?
Yeah, as I earlier explained, we are now focusing on CPEC. We are entering the second stage of CPEC, which features, this industrial cooperation and this social sector development, third-party participation, and also agricultural cooperation with each other. So we are trying to, cooperate with our Pakistani friends in different sectors. So this is, within CPEC, we are working, in so many things, on so many things. Outside CPEC, on trade, we are trying to, just as you mentioned, we are upgraded this, the free trade agreement with Pakistan. We offered, the free, the tariff, zero tariff to Pakistan on many more goods, especially in agricultural goods for Pakistan. So we hope, this upgradation of this FTA will be a great boost for the, bilateral trade. And also we are, trying to encourage Chinese businessmen to invest in Pakistan. We hope that Pakistan can offer, better investment, policies, can offer better incentives, for the not only for Chinese investors but also for foreign investors. We are also trying to promote, cooperation and exchanges in culture, in defense production, in science and technology, in different areas, between the two countries. We are trying to facilitate, those delegations between the two countries. I think there is still great potential, and compared with the best political relations between China and Pakistan, we need to work even harder, to further enhance the bilateral relations in different sectors.
All right. Thank you very much, Excellency Lijian Zhao, to have given us a very frank insight on China and its relations with different countries of the world, the current problems that plague the world, and of course, the Pakistan-China all-friendship relationship that exists. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of this show. I'll end with, firstly, a summary of Pakistan-China relationship that enjoy a deep-rooted, strategic and time-tested relationship, which cannot be compared with China's relationship with any other country. Centuries ago, Napoleon said, "Let China sleep, for when she awakens, she will shake the world." Also, there's a Chinese proverb that I'd like to end the show with: "Be not afraid of growing slowly, be only afraid of standing still." China is a country that has never stood still, and also it has never stood still when it comes to its friendship and its backing and its relationship and cooperation with Pakistan, for which we will forever be grateful and thankful. Excellency Lijian Zhao, thank you so very much for your time and, of course, for your frankness as far as answering my different questions are concerned. Thank you very much,
Thank
sir.
you. Bahut shukriya. Thank you.